Damon arrived at the market and looked through various stalls. He tried to remain indifferent, but even his heartbeat spiked when his eyes landed on piles of herbs and ores, materials that would sell for fortunes in human lands, being pushed around here like common junk. Spirit iron chunks, duskroot blossoms, and even faintly glowing rainstones lay scattered across crooked tables, sold for copper coins. He forced himself to stay calm, masking the gleam in his crimson eyes. If he swept everything into his pouch at once, it would raise too many eyebrows. Instead, he bought carefully, one or two items at a time, pretending to haggle half-heartedly like any other passerby. A bundle of herbs here, a pouch of raw ore there. He only bought a few things. He even rejected some offers to make it look like he wasn't interested. The merchants didn't care. They took his coins and barked for the next customer. But Damon could feel it, the eyes on him. Many people were observing him, mostly demons, some beastkin. And still, no vampires. Damon clicked his tongue and continued walking. He hit up another tavern and enjoyed a few dozen demon girls. He then once again wandered, exploring all nooks and corners of the city. He even ended up visiting a brothel, though he only ended up drinking blood again. He tried to collect information from the demon girl who served him, but it was of no use. It was just a dead end. It was almost as if all of the vampires from the city had suddenly disappeared. Everything looked a little too fishy. Damon quietly continued his stroll until he came to the center of the city, a place, no surprise, dedicated to more brawls and street fights. Damon silently leaned against an inconspicuous wall and closed his eyes. He then activated his primordial senses. It was not like a switch that he could flip on and off, but it needed a great deal of effort from him to completely activate the senses, to get at their full benefit. Damon was definitely not doing his very best, but he was surely getting better every time he practiced the skill. He slowed his breathing, pushing his awareness outward like an invisible tide. Immediately, the city blurred. The jeers of demons, the clash of fists, the clatter of coins, they dulled into a distant hum. His awareness swept over them as he got a vague idea, a blueprint of everything going on in the city. However, letting his senses go wild in the city was completely different from letting his senses run free in the wilderness. Here, there were more powerful entities living, beings who would become instantly aware of the fact that he was spying on them. Damon was not naive enough to foolishly use his primordial senses to such an extent. He kept it limited, just to a few streets in and around the common city area where the general population mostly roamed about, creating ruckus here and there. He had a feeling that he was missing something, and bingo, it turned out that he was correct. In just a few seconds, he could immediately lock on to a few bloody auras. Vampires. He had no doubt about it. He sharpened his focus, narrowing his senses further, careful not to stretch too far and alert one of the bigger presences lurking in the city. He focused only on the building that was on the far end of the plaza, the spot where he had sensed the vampires momentarily. His awareness brushed over it lightly. Unlike the rowdy demon taverns or the smoke-filled gambling dens, this building was quiet. From the outside, it seemed like just another abandoned building, but Damon could clearly feel the blood essence leaking every now and then. His lips curved into a grin. Finally, the missing friends he had been searching for. He didn't probe further, not yet. Even at this limited range, he knew if he pushed harder, they'd sense him instantly and scatter like shadows. Instead, he slowly pulled back, letting his senses fold in until he was once again just another face leaning against a wall in the chaos of the city. Damon opened his eyes, crimson glinting in the torchlight of the plaza. "Found you," he murmured under his breath, already turning over how best to approach. Should he march straight to the door and announce himself like a noble vampire demanding audience, or should he wait and watch what they were up to? Damon silently pondered as he walked over to a nearby tavern and sat down. He continued acting normal and feasting on more demon women while calmly observing everything that was going on within the building. Vampires kept going in and out, but all of them clearly used various stealth mechanisms to remain under the radar. That was especially a difficult task to accomplish, considering that they were smack dab in the middle of the city. They surely had the help of someone powerful, someone who could provide such skills or artifacts to help them remain invisible. This wasn't a ragtag coven scraping by. They were organized. He leaned back, letting the girl on his lap giggle and whisper sweet nothings in his ear, but his mind ticked sharply. Something was going down. Could it perhaps have something to do with the auction? Damon stood up and left the tavern after some time. He didn't want them to know he had sensed them just yet. There was a reason they weren't including him in whatever was going down, and he wanted to know all the details. He returned to the inn, still keeping an eye on the building every other minute. When he was not observing them, he practiced using demonic fire and tinkering with his newly acquired demonic skills. The entire night went by just like that when the game time once again restarted and Mark and Kate returned. Damon didn't waste time. Once everyone had gathered back at the inn, he laid out the situation in crisp detail. There was no need for the others to hover around the city streets where he already had his senses locked on. Keep your eyes sharp, but don't linger here. We need resources, so you guys can head over to the nearby villages, towns, and even roadside stalls. Buy whatever you can and strip them clean of anything useful. Herbs, ores, rare beast parts, talismans, tools, weapons. Buy anything of value. While Damon was still not sure of the whole guild creation, he knew that operating one required a shit ton of resources. Mountains of resources. Not a handful, not a pile. Mountains. One needed money to make more money. That's just how things worked. Damon, in general, did not have a good opinion about guilds. In his last life, when he was fucked over, his so-called friends, his guildmates, did shit all to help him. Most of them simply laughed behind his back at his predicament, and many even laughed right in front of his face. When the times were good, they called you brother. When the times were bad, they stepped over your corpse to get ahead. Guilds weren't families, and they were sure as hell not bonds forged in blood or trust. They were businesses, and the second you couldn't pay your dues in strength, coin, or usefulness, you were cast aside. Damon had learned that lesson the hard way. That bitter taste still lingered, even now. This time, if he built something, it wouldn't be a guild in the traditional sense. It would be his fortress, his network, his people, not a collection of leeches who could betray him when convenient. After Damon dispersed everyone, he once again continued his training, all the while keeping an eye on the building. The next couple of days went by in the blink of an eye. Soon it was time for the auction. Damon was pretty sure that this was when something big was going to go down. He sensed increased movements from the building. Finally, the vampires were making their move just like he expected. After a while, Damon's eyes widened in surprise. Even he did not expect this. About 50 or so C-rank vampires silently slipped out of the building without attracting much attention. They seemed to be wearing some sort of charm that hid their levels and their presence. He was only able to sense them for a fraction of a second before their auras and presence completely disappeared. They walked out of the building like ordinary bloodlings. For the average demon or beastkin watching, they looked like nothing more than weak, fresh bloodlings heading out for a night's prowl. This meant only one thing. Someone high up in the vampire hierarchy was pulling these strings. Damon's grin widened. A secret auction already promised rare items and rare beasts, but if the vampires were moving in such numbers, then something truly priceless was about to change hands. It looked like he had arrived in the city at a good time. Damon stood up and he too walked out of the inn, heading in the same direction. Everyone was headed to the Spire district. Soon, one of the vampires tore off the group and headed in a different direction. Damon decided that this was a perfect opportunity to find out what the hell was going on. He slipped into stealth, immediately tailing the one who broke away. He did not have to follow the vampire for long. The guy went to a secluded alleyway, and Damon quickly caught up. He shadow-stepped and appeared right behind the guy. He slammed the guy on the alley wall and opened his mouth, when unexpectedly a powerful force assaulted him. In a split second, the tables were flipped, and a pair of strong hands held Damon down on the wall instead. "Where are your manners, acolyte? Did they not teach you how to greet your elders?" A woman, and for the first time since entering the Bloodlands, he actually felt outmatched in raw strength. Whoever the vampire was, she was extremely powerful, perhaps peak C rank, or even brushing the threshold of B rank. Damon's crimson eyes narrowed. "Elders don't usually skulk around in back alleys," he said coolly. The woman smirked. She leaned closer, her breath cool against his ear. "Sharp tongue. Careful you don't bite it off." She let her aura press heavier, enough that even Damon's enhanced body creaked under the invisible weight. Then, just as suddenly, she released him. Damon staggered forward half a step before steadying, refusing to give her the satisfaction of seeing him falter. Her crimson gaze lingered on him, studying, appraising. "You're not just some stray bloodling. You hide it well, but your essence is far too rich. Who are you really, and why are you sniffing around my people?" Damon couldn't really see the woman's face. She had some sort of illusion spell activated. In fact, he couldn't see anything about her at all, and yet her eyes seemed to see right through him. A noble? A blood hall lord? Where the hell is Neria? Fuck! The damned woman had come to the right conclusion under a second. For a second, Damon was anxious if she could see through more of him, but it looked like this was her limit. "I don't know who you are or where you are from, but it would be best if you do not interfere with our matters tonight. We have no enmity with each other, and for your sake, I hope it stays that way." Damon, in general, did not have a good opinion about guilds, but since he was here, he knew it would be important to develop a relationship with them. "Sure, I was never really planning on interfering anyway. All I'm looking for is a portal to the Crimson Mountains. Like you said, I'm not from here and would love to meet and greet my fellow bloodsuckers properly." The woman remained silent for a long moment before she turned and started walking away. "Stick around. Maybe after everything is over I can bring you along with me." Her form blurred at the edges, swallowed by shadow. A heartbeat later, she was gone. Damon exhaled slowly. He leaned against the wall, crimson eyes narrowing at the empty alley where she had vanished. After everything is over, huh? Sounds like this auction really is going to be fun. He waited for a couple of minutes. Then, with a casual roll of his shoulders, he stepped out of the alley, once again heading in the same direction. The woman had only asked him not to interfere in their affairs. She did not say anything about attending the auction itself. He followed the red lanterns in stealth and arrived at the location in no time. 1 gold coin to enter. The demon brute at the entrance blocked his path. The guy was massive, horns curling like jagged blades, his bulk nearly filling the narrow entryway. His hand was outstretched, palm open, waiting for the coin. The lantern glow painted his skin in flickering red, his fangs bared in a half-snarl, half-smile. Damon paid the gold coin. The guard stepped aside, the heavy door behind him creaking open with a low groan. Damon was shocked right away. The inside of the building was nothing like what he thought it would be. Instead of the small, cramped room, there was a big hall in front of him. The walls were lined with shiny obsidian pillars that had glowing runes on them. There were a lot of races around him. Everyone was going to the big auditorium that was at the end of the hall. Rows upon rows of seats stretched toward a central stage where attendants in black robes prepared cages, shrouded crates, and relics covered in runic cloth. At the far end, there was an elevated dais where an auctioneer was yet to come. The whole setup pretty much resembled a system-sanctioned auction house, except that the scale of this was slightly smaller. Also, there was no separate VIP section or different private booths. There was only the common seating area. The different races seemed to have segregated and staked out their own corners. The demons occupied the right side, the beastkin were sitting on the left, and the other races were grouped here and there. Even though the entire place was way too crowded for this to be called a secret auction, there seemed to be selective individuals present at the auction. It was definitely not the same rowdy crowd on the street. Damon only took a moment to observe everything and then silently walked over to the group of vampires sitting in the crowd. A few heads turned his way, but no one said anything. Only one particularly hostile pair of eyes followed him. "I thought I specifically asked you not to interfere," an angry voice sounded in his ear. Damon shrugged. "Relax," he murmured, his lips barely moving. "I'm here to watch, just like everyone else." For a moment there was silence, but the hostile gaze never left him. He could feel her trying to pierce through him, as if to weigh whether to strike him down here and now or let him be. Finally, the voice whispered again, colder this time. "Then sit, acolyte, and remember your place. If you step out of line, not even your precious noble blood will save you." Damon did not say anything. He simply leaned back and looked around. More and more demons and beastkin continued to enter the auditorium. Shockingly, almost everyone who had arrived here was either a peak D rank or a C rank, more powerful than the crowd he had expected. After a while, the hall's torches flared to life with green fire. The attendants in black robes stepped back, and a new figure walked onto the dais. The auctioneer had arrived. The hum of whispers died instantly as the auctioneer stepped onto the stage. He was a gaunt demon with skin like pale ash, his eyes glowing like embers beneath a hooded robe. With a single sweep of his clawed hand, silence blanketed the hall. "Honored guests," his voice rang out, amplified by enchantments carved into the walls. "Welcome to the auction. Tonight you are not merely buyers, you are predators hunting rare prey, and prey there will be." A ripple of excitement surged through the audience. Even the vampires leaned forward slightly, their crimson gazes sharpening. The attendants dragged the first item forward, a massive cage veiled in black cloth. The metal rattled as something inside snarled. The air thickened with killing intent, forcing a few weaker beastkin in the crowd to flinch. With a flourish, the cloth was yanked away. Inside was a creature Damon instantly recognized, a hellhound, its hide charred black, veins glowing with molten fire, eyes like pits of magma. Except this one was special. Chains of rune-inscribed silver bound its limbs, sizzling each time the beast strained. "A juvenile Emberfang hellhound," the auctioneer announced, his lips curling into a sharp smile. "Born of the infernal pits, rare, untamable, and worth more than gold. A beast that can rip apart squads of demons once it matures. We will start the bidding at 10 gold coins." The hall erupted at once, bids flying. 15, a beastkin chieftain barked. 20, a demon noble countered. 30, another shouted. The number shot up fast, reaching 100 in the blink of an eye, but that seemed to be the limit. The beast was sold off for 100 gold coins. The beastkin stomped forward, tossing a heavy pouch on the attendant's tray. The auctioneer's grin widened as the hellhound's cage was dragged off stage, the beast thrashing and spitting molten drool all the way down. The beastkin's eyes gleamed with savage pride, his underlings cheering behind him. "Sold for 100 gold coins," the auctioneer declared, his voice booming, silencing the hall once more. "Now then, our next item." One by one, many items were brought to the stage, each one of them quite rare and useful. They would give a significant boost in power for anyone who purchased, but at most, they went for a couple of thousand gold coins. A vial of crystallized beast marrow, glowing faintly like liquid lightning, fetched 1,000 gold. A chained thunderhawk chick, its wings clipped, sparks still jumping from its feathers, was sold off for 3,000. Even obscure curiosities like a mask said to let the wearer hear whispers of the dead found eager buyers. Damon stayed quiet, his crimson gaze cold, simply watching as the parade of treasures rolled by. Most weren't worth putting a spotlight on himself just yet. He wanted to see what the vampires were after. Then came something interesting. A young girl in a cage. She sat curled against the bars, her emerald eye blank and distant. "Look at the pointy ears and the pale skin. That's a little elf chick caught by our skilled hunters. Now, who wants to taste elven flesh, or perhaps have a little fun on the side from time to time? Elven women are strong and can take whatever you throw at them, and if you let this young chick grow, she might even blossom into a stunning beauty." The auctioneer sold the product quite well. However, despite that, there was only limited interest. 10, someone shouted a lazy bid. 20, and not a single coin more for the flat-chested bitch, another one gruffly grunted. In the end, the rate only went up to 50, and no one was willing to pay even a coin more. The auctioneer was about to finalize the transaction when suddenly Bloodrain's voice weakly sounded. "Master, get her." Damon did not understand why Bloodrain would be interested in someone like her, but his hand instantly shot up. 60 gold coins. It's been a while since I tasted elf blood," he laughed casually. 60? Ah, now that's more like it. Do I hear 65? 70? Silence. A few demons sneered, muttering under their breath. Crazy bloodsucker wasting gold on a twig. 60 for a brat? He must be starving for elf meat. No one raised the bid higher, not even a single coin. The elf girl's cage rattled faintly as she shifted, her emerald eyes flicking up just for a moment to meet Damon's crimson ones before she once again went back to her indifferent state. "Sold, 60 gold to the vampire," the auctioneer announced, and the cage was wheeled to the side, where attendants unhooked her and prepared for the transfer. Damon immediately received a new system notification. "Ding! A new contract is available." Damon looked at the contents, and it was pretty much the description of a typical slave contract. The girl had to obey his every single command, and if she did not, he had the power to end her life with a mere thought. Runes would be branded on her body using the enslave skill, which would be activated if she disobeyed him, and the girl would be subjected to extreme pain and torture. The cage was brought to him once everything was completed and left by Damon's side. Damon accepted the contract, and the girl and the auctioneer moved on to the next item. No one really bothered to spare him another look. Only the mysterious vampiress who had cornered him earlier shot him a glare before she turned her head back to the main stage. The auction continued without pause, the auctioneer clapping his hands and announcing one treasure after another. Damon frowned. He was genuinely confused. Right from the beginning, there was nothing special about this auction. Nothing really stood out. Even as the whole auction looked to be completed, there was nothing at all worth fighting for. Soon, the last item of the auction was announced. Damon half expected some sort of legendary item to pop out, but everything became anticlimactic when the attendants dragged a woman to the stage. Surprisingly, she was a human woman. She was wearing a white tunic, and Damon could sense the weak divine essence drifting from her tired body. And last but not least, the item everyone has been waiting for, the auctioneer announced with full gusto. The demons in the audience hissed and jeered as their bloodlust rose at the scent of divinity. The beastkin growled with excitement. "Behold!" the auctioneer cried, spreading his arms wide as though he had captured the very sun itself. "A true rarity in these lands, a priestess of the radiant church, blessed by her God, now fallen into our grasp. Now, who wants to play with a good little priestess, a pure virgin goddess? Imagine what her blood could do for your cultivation. Imagine what her prayers could be twisted into under your command." The crowd burst into chaos. Demons roared with glee, beastkin snapped their fangs, and even a few of the darker-robed races hissed at the sight of her. The weak divine aura spilling off the woman was like perfume in the auction hall. Half the bidders looked drunk on the scent alone. The auctioneer milked the moment, striding in a slow circle around the trembling priestess. Her wrists were shackled with glowing iron, and her lips moved soundlessly, as if in prayer. The auctioneer sneered and yanked her head up by the hair so everyone could see her face. "A pure priestess of the radiant church. Do you know how rare such a catch is in our lands? Do you know what her blood and her blessings are worth? So tell me, how much will you pay for her?" He spread his arms dramatically. "We will start the bidding at 1,000 gold coins." Everyone instantly started bidding in a frenzy, the price exploding within seconds and reaching a whole 5,000 gold. Was this the moment he had been waiting for? Damon immediately became alert and waited for something to happen, anything to happen. His gaze swept across the vampires who were still remaining silent. Damon frowned. What the hell were these people even here for? All of a sudden, a loud uproar sounded in the entrance, snapping him out of his thoughts. Damon turned toward the source of the chaos. It was a single demon. The newcomer was lean, with dark skin. Strange runes were etched across his arms and neck, tattooed in jagged, almost crude patterns. His aura was faint, only that of a D rank. By all appearances, he should have been no one special, a pawn at best, a disposable lackey at worst. And yet, the moment he walked in, the entire hall reacted. "All hail the young master! All hail the demon lord successor! Kneel, kneel for the successor!" Every demon and beastkin in the room rose to their feet in respect, their jeers and murmurs silenced. Even the rowdiest bidders lowered their gazes. Some of them, without hesitation, pushed forward the slaves or items they had just purchased, offering them like tributes. The hall practically shook with the chants. Finally, Damon understood everything. The missing piece of the puzzle had arrived, and everything clicked into place. This was why the vampires had been lying low and keeping their heads down. This was why they had been waiting patiently all this while. They weren't waiting for any treasures, they were waiting for him. If what everyone was shouting indeed was correct, then this man should be a demon lord successor, a being in line to receive and ascend with astronomical power. This guy was essentially equivalent to a crown prince of a human empire. It was no wonder that the vampires were plotting against him. A demon lord successor appearing openly in public like this was a huge opportunity, something that should never happen, and yet this guy was here. Just as the thought crossed Damon's mind, the vampires who had been sitting idly until now suddenly made their move. Half a dozen blood auras flared to life. Before anyone could react, a massive blood circle with numerous blood sigils came to life underneath everyone. It was clearly a domain skill, but the skill was huge enough to encompass the whole auditorium. Damon only needed a glance to confirm that the mysterious woman was the caster. Her aura was the most powerful among the attackers. The entire floor lit up crimson, runes writhing like serpents across the obsidian tiles. They bled light and power, coiling upward into shackles of blood that tried to bind the entire hall. Whips and hands of blood rose and clawed at anyone that was within this circle. Screams echoed as weaker demons collapsed instantly. Even the beastkin roared in panic, claws raking the ground, unable to bear the pressure of the domain. Only the stronger ones silently erected defense mechanisms and were able to react in time. But even they found it difficult to escape the area marked by blood. The entire hall erupted in chaos. and in the midst of this chaos, the vampires started attacking and going all out. The sigils on the floor blazed brighter, blood runes crawling up the obsidian pillars like veins of fire. Whips, claws, and tendrils of blood lashed out indiscriminately, ripping through weaker demons and beastkin as if they were cattle being culled. Every scream echoed in triplicate within the domain, the sound amplified until it became a cacophony of despair. The mysterious vampiress stood in the center of the circle, her eyes glowing like pools of scarlet flame, her cloak spread wide as though she were the domain itself. The pressure radiating from her was suffocating, bending weaker spines and driving even some C-rank warriors to their knees. Around her, the other vampires revealed their true strength. One conjured spears of blood that hovered in a deadly halo before firing off like crimson comets. Another summoned numerous blood orbs that shot in different directions, creating chains of explosions. A third tore open their palms, smearing their blood into the runes, and in response, the domain's whips grew sharper, more vicious. The entire place descended into complete and utter madness. Demons bellowed as they struggled against the bindings, beastkin slashed wildly, and the priestess on stage trembled violently, her divine aura fluttering like a dying flame. However, amid it all, the lean, rune-marked successor remained unmoved, his dark eyes fixed on the vampires, as though this chaos wasn't even worth his notice. Impudent leeches. Just because we allowed you to step foot in our land doesn't mean you can forget your place. His dark skin shimmered as the crude tattoos across his body ignited one by one, each rune burning like molten metal. The blood whips lashed at him, shrieking like living serpents, but they never touched his flesh. Every tendril of blood that came within a few feet of him dissolved into ash, burned away by an invisible force. The runes glowed hotter, and then with a single step forward, the successor shattered the floor beneath him. The entire blood domain quivered, the crimson glow flickered as if terrified, and several of the blood constructs, chains, claws, whips, snapped apart like glass struck by a hammer, exhausted red wisps raining everywhere. The demon's cold gaze locked onto the vampiress at the center of the circle. "You dare bare your fangs at me?" He extended a hand lazily toward her, and the tattoos along his arm crawled and twisted, rearranging themselves into a glowing sigil that pulsed with authority. The vampiress immediately trembled, her scarlet eyes widening as she realized what it was. A lord's mark, a fragment of the demon lord's own authority, branded upon his heir. Impossible! How could this demon already possess something like this? This development was not within their calculations. The sight of the Lord's mark glowing on the demon's arm was something no one had expected. Her blood domain strained violently against it, the runes hissing and writhing as though they'd been branded with fire. The whips faltered, claws shattered mid-swing, and half the bindings on the weaker demons evaporated in a burst of steam. "Impossible," she hissed, her voice reverberating across the collapsing circle. "The mark should only awaken after the ritual, after the coronation." The successor's lips curved into the faintest smirk, though his gaze remained cold. "Rituals are for those who need permission. I was chosen." The Lord's mark pulsed again. This time the entire domain convulsed. Infernal flames erupted everywhere. Blood orbs detonated in mid-air, showering crimson mist. The vampire conjurer who had unleashed them screamed as his own body burst apart, veins rupturing one by one. The spears of blood hanging in the air shattered into shards and rained down harmlessly. The vampiress staggered, blood flowing freely from her mouth. Her eyes still flashed dangerously. Clearly she was not ready to give up just yet, even though this was not the fight she had signed up for. A blood sword appeared in her hands as she dashed towards the demon. She moved like a streak of scarlet lightning, her blood sword howling as it carved through the air. The sword extended unnaturally, its powerful aura stretching 10 meters forward, enough to bisect a squad of demons in a single blow. The successor didn't even flinch. A shockwave rippled out from him, and the infernal flames wreathing his body coalesced into a jagged weapon of his own, a black glaive, its edge dripping with fire that wasn't flame, but raw authority. Blood and fire collided. The black glaive and the blood-forged sword met with a thunderclap that sent shockwaves tearing through the auditorium. Walls cracked, and obsidian pillars splintered. The entire place was about to collapse. The pressure of the clash drove weaker onlookers to their knees, blood spraying from their ears under the weight of the two powers colliding. The vampiress roared, her aura erupting, fueling her weapon with the essence of blood. Her blade shrieked, stretching further, veins of crimson pulsing along its edge. She pushed with everything she had, desperate to cut through. But the glaive wreathed in infernal authority didn't yield. The successor's mark blazed brighter, and with it came an oppressive heat that wasn't flame, but sheer will. Each rune on his skin bled power into the weapon, making it feel as though the demon lord himself stood behind the strike. Bit by bit, the vampiress's sword cracked. Crimson fissures spiderwebbed along its length as the glaive bore down. At last, with a final grinding sound, the blood sword split apart in her hands, bursting into shards that dissolved into a fine red mist. The recoil hurled her backward, crashing her against the runed pillars with a deafening crack. Blood poured from her lips, but her eyes still burned with defiance even as her body trembled from the backlash. "Did you think the blood of vermin could rival the will of a king?" The demon sneered as he walked towards her weakened body. Another infernal glaive appeared in his hand, and with a look of utter contempt, he raised his hand, wanting to bring it down on the woman and end her life once and for all. However, the raised hand surprisingly could not be brought down. Shit has finally hit the fan. Damon calmly observed everything from the shadows. The moment he saw the demon strutting in like he owned the place and casually withstanding the blood domain, he knew it was time to bolt. The vampiress was clearly no match for the guy. Damon was fully prepared to run. He had no plans to interfere in this big mess. Even the vampiress had specifically asked him not to interfere with her plans, so why should he butt in? He hadn't died yet in this game, and he did not plan to start doing it anytime soon. However, he still couldn't bring himself to run. This was because the situation unfolding in front of him was a golden opportunity, a once-in-a-lifetime chance to grab a strong foothold in the Crimson Mountains, the land of the vampires, before he even set foot in there. His instincts screamed at him to vanish into the shadows, to escape the tightening net before either the vampiress or the demonaire noticed his presence. If he slipped away now, he would be safe, but he'd also lose this golden opportunity. Damon looked at the other vampires. Half of them were already dead. He did not care about these side characters. The woman was the only one who mattered. All he needed to do was make sure that he somehow escaped this place along with her, and everything would work itself out. But he was up against a fucking demon lord candidate. How on earth was he supposed to get her and escape when facing a monster like that? Damon was well aware of the whole demon lord and his successor concept, and he had a good idea just how powerful the guy standing in front of him was. If he did not leave soon, even his escape wouldn't be a sure thing. But was there absolutely nothing he could do? His bloodline, his primordial mana core, his poison body. Wasn't there anything he could use against him? Damon racked his brain. Then he finally remembered something he could indeed use. A grin appeared on his face as he made the decision once and for all. Yep, he was going to do this crazy thing. Damon used blink and shadow step and was about to get out of the auditorium to start up another whole round of chaos when he noticed that the vampiress was about to bite the dust. Fuck, Damon cursed. If the woman had held on for even another few seconds, then his life would have been a lot easier. But now he had to do all the dirty work by himself and even put his life on the line. This woman had better be worth it. Instead of heading out, Damon summoned his shadow clone to do the job on his behalf, while he once again blinked back into the eye of the storm to face a monster who was undoubtedly on the path to becoming a god in the future. One moment he was a nobody that no one had even placed in their eyes, and the next moment he was standing right in front of the Demon Lord's successor, directly between his glaive and the vampiress. The sheer weight of the heir's authority pressed down on him, and his instincts screamed at him to run, but Damon stood his ground. The next second, without hesitation, he used his moment of surprise to unleash his personal domain, the poison domain. Damon's domain flared to life, his veins ignited with toxic mana as a miasm of purple and black mist spilled outward in a wave. He unleashed the full power of his poison body without holding back. He would be crazy to hold back anything at all against a monster like this. The floor corroded where his aura touched it, cracks hissing with green smoke. Damon's venomous will ate into everything. While the blood domain was showy and powerful and did a lot of things like pop out whips and claws, Damon's domain was silent and deadly. It did nothing at all, and yet everyone standing within suddenly felt choked. The surviving vampires and demons choked, coughing blood as the miasm slithered into their lungs. The weaker ones collapsed outright, foaming at the mouth. The successor's infernal glaive halted inches from Damon's chest, wreathed in fire and authority. For the first time since entering, the heir's eyes narrowed. A domain from a D-rank blood acolyte? Who are you? Damon did not wait around to have a friendly chat with the Demon Lord's successor. He hurriedly pulled the vampiress and dashed out of there using the fraction of a second he had. The vampiress, battered and bloodied, stared at Damon through the haze with wide eyes. "Stop staring and start running," Damon growled as he unceremoniously dropped her on her ass and blinked the hell out of there. The vampiress did not have to be told twice. She too used her own methods to teleport, and she was obviously faster. The Demon Lord's successor sneered as he watched the two of them disappear. "You think you can outrun me?" His voice resounded all over the city. The streets outside the auction hall shook as the successor's voice rolled like thunder, rattling windows and sending beastkin and demons alike scrambling to kneel. His words weren't just sound, they carried authority, pressing down like the weight of a collapsing mountain. Damon felt the pressure on his entire being. It was the same feeling he had gotten when facing the demon god's avatar back in the real world. Shadow Step carried him through one alley, then another, his mana pool draining bit by bit. This was not a run he was going to win, and he already knew it. "We can't run from him. There is nowhere to go." The vampiress spat out the same words, but Damon firmly shook his head. "No, we can outrun him. In a second, he's going to be busy with something." Before he could finish his words, a pillar of black fire erupted, and the Demon Lord was standing right in front of him once again. Damon barely managed to erect a blood barrier before the glaive slammed into him, but it was nowhere near enough to face the powerful attack. The impact rattled his bones, tearing through flesh. He was hurled across the street, crashing into the wall of a merchant's hall. Buildings split, dust raining down as he staggered upright. His arm dangled uselessly at his side, purple-black venom dripping from the shredded stump. Before he could react, the demon was already there, moving like a thunderclap. The glaive pierced through Damon's shoulder, pinning him to the wall. The heir leaned close, his eyes glowing with baleful fire. With a single yank, he cleanly severed Damon's arm. The demon then licked the blood that still clung to the torn muscles and veins, savoring it like fine wine. "You are a poison master, bloodsucker." He licked the arm again. "Indeed, extremely talented. Your venom gnaws at me, slows me. It has been many centuries since a fledgling made me feel irritation." He smiled cruelly, fangs glinting in the shadow of the firelight. "I need to study you, piece by piece." On the side, the vampiress growled and came at the demon with her blood-sword, but the heir didn't even turn his head. With a lazy swipe of his glaive, almost contemptuous, he met her strike and shattered it. The backlash hurled her away like a broken doll, slamming her through another building. An explosion resounded. Her body lay sprawled in the wreckage, unmoving. Damon's vision blurred. Everything was happening too fast. The demon was at a level he couldn't even come near. The suppression on him was simply too big for him to be fighting at his full capability. But fuck him, he was not going to simply be a punching bag. He could feel his blood boiling and his monocore thrumming. His entire body was ready to erupt in retaliation. Damon knew he had only one chance. He couldn't waste it. The next moment, wind picked up and a golden light shimmered in front of Damon. He immediately activated 3 skills consecutively: Radiant Wellspring, Bastion of the Condemned, Divine Bladestorm. The last skill was something Damon was only recently trying to put together, but it did not matter. Right now, this was the biggest chance he had. The demon probably thought he had nothing else except for poison, and he had momentarily given him a fraction of a second. This would probably be his one and only opportunity to survive. He needed to surprise the demon with divine power, something the demon should be weak against. The air howled. The next second, a divine brilliance emerged right next to Damon. Motes of divine mana surged towards him, rapidly healing him. The demon's eyes widened in shock, but Damon wasn't done just yet. Countless swords emitting divine radiance appeared all around them. They circled, creating a hurricane of divine brilliance, all the swords coming for the demon lord's heir at the same time. The divine bladestorm descended. Blades rained down like a divine punishment, carving the street to dust, splitting rooftops, and hurling debris into the night sky. The sound was deafening, 1,000 swords screaming as they bit into the demon heir from every angle. The heir's expression finally shifted. His eyes widened in shock, infernal fire flaring as the glaive spun to life in his grip. Infernal flames completely enveloped him, the black fire rising like a pillar that clawed at the heavens. The divine swords screamed as they descended, but the flames devoured them one after another, reducing radiant blades to nothing but ash. Damon roared, pouring everything into keeping the divine bladestorm alive. With the bastion forming a powerful shield around him, he activated divine punishment and dashed towards the demon with a divine essence hammer that materialized in his hand. The air laughed amidst the destruction, his voice carrying over the chaos. Magnificent, a fledgling wielding divine power tainted by poison. You are no ordinary bloodsucker. You are an abomination worth keeping. Damon's hammer drove forward, fueled by every last drop of his willpower, his bloodline boiling, his monocore screaming. For the briefest moment, the hammer pressed through the infernal fire, crushing against the air's glaive with enough force to stagger the demon back half a step. Half a step, yet enough to draw blood. A line of black blood welled across the air's cheek where stray divine energy had kissed him. The air's laughter rolled like thunder, louder, more manic, and more delighted than ever. He caught Damon's hammer with one hand, halting its descent, the glaive braced casually in the other. The infernal flames around him surged, consuming the last remnants of the divine storm. Yes, this is it. Show me more. Show me how far an abomination can go. Then, with a single twist, the air wrenched the hammer aside and drove his knee into Damon's gut. The impact nearly folded him in half, shattering ribs and forcing blood and venom from his mouth in a violent spray. The bastion cracked, the hammer dissolved, fading like mist. Damon staggered back, his vision swimming. His body could barely hold together. His health was 90% gone in a single exchange. The radiant wellspring continued to work on overdrive, but it wasn't enough. The infernal flames, unlike ordinary flames, continued to burn his health away. The air stepped closer, the glaive lowered, its blade brushing Damon's chest. Interesting. How can you wield divine power? I will carve you open and peel back every secret in your veins. But Damon only grinned. You are out of time. The air's orbs glowed maliciously with infernal fire as he stared at Damon. For a moment he paused, but then he indifferently proceeded to activate some skill. A burning shackle appeared on Damon's hand, searing deep into his flesh and bone. The metal was not metal at all, but a chain of runes forged from pure infernal law, embedding itself straight into his veins. But the next second, the shackle broke. The skill did not work. The demon's eyes flickered with interest, but before he could try again, much more forcefully this time, all of a sudden, a shiver ran down his spine. The infernal orbs in his eyes dimmed into nothingness, and his eyes turned gray. The shift was instantaneous. One moment the air was a roaring inferno of malicious authority, flames licking the sky as if he were about to split the world open. The next, his infernal blaze guttered out like a candle in a storm. The black fire that had devoured the divine blade storm winked out. The glaive, still poised at Damon's chest, lowered ever so slightly, its flames shriveling into harmless embers. The air's pupils, once molten coals, were now flat gray and lifeless as stone. The air's body twitched once, then stiffened. Instead of the powerful attacks that the demon tossed one after the other, the body now raised its hand to cast a simple demonic fire explosion skill. The aftermath was no doubt deadly, but it was not remotely as powerful as the air's attack. Damon's grin widened. His shadow clone had done it. It had finally come through for him in the clutch. He immediately emptied a healing potion and melded into the shadows. The explosion blossomed like a flower of black fire, swallowing the street in a thunderous wave. Stone cracked, walls collapsed, and the night sky lit up with a plume of smoke and flame. Yet Damon, already dissolved into the shadows, slipped away like mist before the blast could devour him. The heat grazed his form, searing his already tattered health, but compared to what he had just endured, it was almost laughable. From his vantage point in the gloom of a shattered alley, he watched. The demon air moved stiffly now, as though strings guided his limbs. The aura of crushing supremacy was gone, replaced by a hollow emptiness. His gray eyes stared ahead without focus, and he cast another fire explosion into the ruins, again devastating, but crude, shallow, and mechanical. The vampiress crawled out of the rubble, coughing blood, eyes flashing in disbelief. She too seemed to notice the difference. He "He's weakened," she whispered hoarsely, her voice trembling with both fear and exhilaration. Damon's fangs bared in a bloody grin. "Weakened?" He shook his head. "No, he's broken. You got a minute, maybe only seconds. Can you kill him or not? Make your decision quickly. If you can't kill, then at least activate the portal to the Crimson Mountains. We need to get out of here." The vampiress staggered upright, leaning heavily on her shattered blood sword. Her crimson eyes flickered with fury and hesitation, the weight of centuries of ambition warring with the stark reality before her. Kill him? In this state, even broken, he's still a demon heir. If I fail, neither of us will leave this city alive. The vampiress clenched her jaw, then pressed her hand against the cracked sigil stone at her waist. A blood portal shimmered faintly, unstable, half-formed. "The portal will take time. I can hold it open for 30 seconds at most, but I need to get the others. I cannot simply let them all perish for my mistake. I need to get back to the auction hall." Damon's eyes suddenly widened as he remembered the elven slave. "Fine, let's go. Do you have a way to get us there faster?" The vampiress appeared at his side in a blink. Before he could even take another breath, her hand gripped his shoulder and the world warped around them. In the next instant, the two of them vanished in a blur of blood. They reappeared in front of the auction hall. Damon stumbled, barely keeping his balance, while the vampiress dropped to one knee, breathing hard. Blood trickled from her nose. Then she began opening up the portal. "You got 30 seconds. Damon immediately dashed into the auction hall, which was pretty much ruined now. On his way in, he saw several corpses lying around, blood essence everywhere. He helped himself to all the essence he could gather while at the same time dashing inside. So many corpses were littered all around, his poison domain wafting out of many of them. It looked like even though his poison domain did not work against the demon lord's heir, it still worked well enough against many of the other demonkin and beastkin. Damon immediately knew who was responsible for this. Amidst all the carnage, drained bodies were slumped all over the place. The vampire seemed to have made a comeback after his intervention, but unfortunately even they were not completely immune to his poison. As he reached further inside the wreckage of the auditorium, he could clearly see even the vampires scattered around, some paralyzed and some writhing from the effects of the poison. Damon thought for a moment, then quickly removed the effects of his poison essence selectively from their bodies. He then proceeded to look around hurriedly. Unexpectedly, he couldn't find the elven slave anywhere. Was she dead? Damon double-checked the system interface, and it confirmed that she was indeed still alive. Then where the hell was she hiding? If the elf was alive, she had to be close. He forced himself to focus, letting his heightened senses expand outward. At first, he did not sense anything at all, except for the blood and gore everywhere. But when he tried for a second time, he sensed a weak aura coming from one of the collapsed heaps. Without wasting time, Damon immediately dashed towards the pile of rubble. When he was closer, he noticed the obvious anomaly. Inside the heap of rubble, there was a space where there was nothing at all. Everything seemed to be floating around this empty space. Rubble and debris should have crushed anything beneath, yet here stones and splintered beams hovered slightly off the ground. Damon browed an eyebrow. A faint shimmer lined the edges of the space, almost invisible unless you stared directly at it. Damon did not have the time right now to get into this. "Come out. That is an order." All of a sudden, stones and debris clattered down, and curled in the center was the elven slave. Dust covered her hair, and her skin was streaked with blood and grime. Her emerald eyes, wide and frightened, locked on Damon. Outside, everything was in chaos. The city was burning, demonic flames everywhere. Shockwaves spread out here and there. Half of the city was already destroyed. The other demons and beastkin who lived in the city were running around like headless chickens, not knowing what was happening. Wherever the broken air went, destruction followed. Many beings were indiscriminately slaughtered. Explosions rippled through the streets, destroying everything in sight. The other higher-tier demons residing in the city finally made their move and arrived at the scene. They appeared like storms descending from the skies, each one exuding their own powerful auras. Some of them had wings of demonic fire, others had horns of lightning. Each one of them were terrifying in their own way. However, they were all shocked to see the scene unfolding in front of them. Impossible! The Lord's heir is here? When did he arrive? What happened to him? Heir Supreme, please stop your slaughter. The powerful C-rank demons did not understand what was going on. None of them were even aware that the Lord's heir was visiting their city. To make matters worse, his condition was extremely unstable, and he seemed to be under some sort of special curse. This frustrated everyone. While they had to do everything to stop their city from being destroyed completely, they also did not dare to injure the Heir Supreme. The chaos only became worse and worse as time passed. Meanwhile, Damon burst out of the broken building. He did not say anything to the elf. This was neither the time nor the place. He simply tossed a couple of healing spells at her, dragged her out of the wreckage, and dashed back outside the ruined building. The elven girl winced, simply staring at his back. Damon's eyes were only on the vampiress. She was crouched by the half-formed blood portal. Blood poured from her nose and mouth, staining her pale chin, but her hands didn't waver as she held the unstable gateway open. 10 seconds, she shouted. That's all I can give. I am ready to leave. Damon sprinted straight for the portal, clutching the elf tightly. He had already sent the others back to the outpost. They were instructed to return to the blood hall through the portal and wait for further instructions. The mer people should have already retreated deep into the ocean, and they were also momentarily safe. With everything taken care of, he was ready to leave this place. With one last surge of speed, he hurled himself and the elf into the portal. The vampiress threw herself into the portal as well, as everything snapped shut behind her. Now there was only the ruined city and the demons and beastkin screaming in terror as the broken heir continued his rampage. On the other side, Damon burst out first. He was still holding the elf tightly in his hand. The girl was trembling, but otherwise she did not seem to be too badly affected. Suspiciously so. A few other vampires were lying scattered all around them, obviously tired and exhausted. Behind them, the vampiress stumbled out next. Her body shook violently, and she collapsed. The portal closed behind her. Damon reached forward to hold her when a dozen vampires appeared all around her. They had gear of high quality on them, and all of them exuded powerful auras. Without even probing, Damon could tell that they were all peak C-rank figures. An intruder? The person in the front gazed at Damon from top to bottom. His eyes were cold and crimson. You need to come with us. Your girl here knows me. Damon was not nervous. Can you tell me what her name is? I don't know her name, but I did save her life. Damon smiled calmly. The vampire did not look like he was buying what Damon was selling. He continued to look at Damon quite sternly. Be that as it may, you need to come with us first. Everything else can be discussed later when everyone has had a chance to recover a little. Damon shrugged. 2 vampires then wordlessly escorted him through a hazy fog. Damon already knew about this fog. This was a special barrier outside the Crimson Mountains, preventing anyone from easily intruding on the territory of the vampires. He had no idea who set it up, but it had been there forever. Unlike the demons, the vampires were not exactly interested in mingling with the other races and kept their territory gates tightly shut and sealed. The 2 escorting vampires walked through the fog unbothered. It seemed like they were already used to it, but there was no such thing. Damon already knew that they were wearing special rings that gave them the ability to ignore the mysterious fog. Patiently, Damon waited until the 2 vampires finally came to a stop. You can go in, one of them said. Wait here until we are ready for you. Don't try to do anything foolish, and you will be fine. Damon silently strolled inside when the fog all of a sudden cleared.
3 steps forward, and he found himself at the entrance of a small castle-type building. It was not a luxurious castle by any means, just a small and simple one. Nevertheless, it was a decent place to stay. They could have done much worse. They could have thrown me into some sort of prison. Damon mused and walked inside, dragging the elven girl along with him. There were no guards whatsoever inside the castle. They walked into a huge, empty hall with extravagant furniture all around. Damon collapsed on the big, comfortable couch. "Fuck, I am finally here." He let out a sigh, going over the insane risks he had taken in these past few hours. Everything had been touch and go for a while there. What kind of nasty shortcut was this? He shook his head and snapped out of it. Everything was done, and there was no point in thinking about what-ifs. He clenched his fists in excitement as he thought back to the power the Demon Lord's heir had. That was the kind of enemy he was going to face in the future. His blood boiled as he recollected the feeling of fighting with him. He needed power, a lot more. And it all started with this place, right here. I'm fucking here, finally. He grinned. Damon finally shifted his attention to the elven girl standing next to him. The girl was trembling from top to bottom as if she was terrified of him. Damon sighed. "It's okay. You can relax. I am not that bad." His words, however, did not really help with anything. The girl was still shaking and looking at the ground, afraid to look anywhere else. "Listen, if I wanted you dead, you would already be dead. I already have a girlfriend, and she is a lot more well-endowed compared to you. I absolutely have no interest whatsoever in a small brat like you. You can really let go and relax. I came back for you, didn't I? I mean, cough. I agree I forgot about you for a minute there and almost left you alone, but I still came back." Damon waited for a reaction, but there was absolutely no response. He sighed and decided to give her some more time to get used to things. "Now then." He stood up and looked around. There wasn't much exactly for him to do at the moment, so he went for a round around the castle. The elf stayed where she was. Damon wandered around by himself. The place wasn't large. The walls were simple stone walls, and most of the rooms were empty. There was a library of sorts, but nothing worthwhile was in it. Even the castle grounds were still foggy, which meant he couldn't really access those. Without much to do, Damon returned to the main hall. It was just him and the elf, and after taking a look at the nervous mess, he decided to close his eyes and reflect on the battle. He barely meditated for a few minutes when a set of rushed footsteps snapped him out of his thoughts. "I am sorry. Please forgive me. My clan members do not know anything, otherwise they wouldn't have treated you like this." Damon opened his eyes slowly. A woman stood in front of him. She had long black hair with thin crimson streaks. Her skin was pale and sickly, even for a vampire, and before she could finish speaking, she coughed up a splatter of blood. She doubled over, chest heaving, each breath coming hard and ragged. A young man came running up behind her. He had a powerful aura around him, strong blood essence that danced around, but not a single drop leaked. It might not be apparent at first, but if one observed it properly, it spoke volumes about his talent. He reached out and grabbed the woman's arm to steady her. "Hinata, you need to rest." He sounded worried. "You shouldn't be pushing yourself. Couldn't this wait another day or two?" When his eyes landed on Damon, the warmth in his face disappeared. His whole posture changed. The friendly helper turned cold as he stared down at Damon with clear contempt in his eyes. Damon remained calm. Some sort of drama was unfolding in front of him, and he allowed it to play out to see where things were headed. Hinata, on the other hand, did not seem to care about him at all. She only looked at Damon, genuinely apologetic. "Thank you so much again. Without you, we would have never made it out of there." The young man again interrupted. "You only barely came in one piece. Whatever happened over there was not acceptable. You were way too reckless. You should have told me before leaving, then things would have never come down to this." He once again shot a death glare towards Damon. "Stop it, Alaric," Hinata finally snapped. "Why are you even here? You are being very disrespectful to my guest. Please leave." Snort. "And if I don't, do you have the strength to make me? You need to take some time to rest and recover." Hinata glared at him stubbornly. "Fine, have it your way. I will wait for you back at home." Alaric flicked his gaze once more at Damon, the contempt still there, then turned and walked out of the hall. Two shadowy guards fell in step with him. The heavy door groaned shut behind them, and for a moment the castle felt quieter. Hinata sagged against a pillar, breathing hard. She forced a weak smile at Damon. "I'm sorry about him. He's an idiot." She tugged on the hem of her sleeve, trying to hide how pale she had gone. "Thank you again, for everything." Damon smiled. He was inwardly shocked to see the arrogant, mysterious vampiress turn into this friendly, nice person. "It's fine. My survival also depended on it, so I didn't really do anything for you. We just helped each other out. There's no need to be so formal." "Don't play humble." Hinata shook her head with a small smile. "You dragged half my people out of that inferno. I owe you more than thanks." Damon shrugged. "All right, I'll take all the credit then. Thanks. So for all this help, any chance you can get me out of here and actually get me into the Crimson Mountains? It sucks to be treated like an outsider by my own people." Hinata's laughed a little. She rested a shaky hand on the back of a chair, then looked straight at Damon. "You're not getting out of this that easy," she said, half teasing, half serious. "I'll do what I can, but you know how things work here. I can't just shove you past the elders. They'll want answers. They'll want a reason to trust you." "Wait, do you even know how things work here? Is this your first time here?" Damon nodded. "Guilty. This is my first time. As for answers and explanation, I can only try my best." "Don't worry, it won't be that big of a deal. You are a vampire after all. In the end, that should be enough for them to let you in without much of a fuss." Incorrect. They did end up making a big fuss. An hour later, Damon stood in the huge hall of a much grander castle, and staring down at him were two powerful C-rank vampires, two elders of the Valeros family. Power rolled off them in heavy waves. One was a broad-shouldered man in dark plate, scars running across his face. The other was a woman in a long robe, eyes cold. Of course, there was also Alaric standing next to them. From the looks of it, he belonged to the same family. The Valeros family controlled this particular mountain in the Crimson Mountain Range, and Hinata mentioned that she was also a member of the same family. Since Damon had entered the Crimson Mountains through their family's territory, they were by default the ones responsible for his admission into the mountains. The two elders watched him like animals watching a new piece of meat. The man in the dark plate folded his arms. The woman in the robe didn't move at all, but her eyes seemed to cut right through Damon. "You arriving there right when Hinata is on the cusp of finishing an important mission for the family, isn't it all a little too coincidental? How were you, a mere blood acolyte, able to survive a clash with the Demon Lord's heir?" Hinata hurriedly opened her mouth to support Damon, but the woman's cold glare made her shut up. "I am asking him," Demora Valeros said coldly. She stepped forward, eyes boring into Damon. "You will answer me directly." Damon sneered inwardly. Sure, why not simply give them all of his secrets? Do they really expect someone to be that dumb? He remained calm and responded with the same answer. "I came from the Light Faction continent," he said. "I run a small blood hall there. We paid a fortune for Crimson Mountain reinforcements, billions of gold coins, in fact. I heard about the Dark Continent and received a quest to open up a portal. A group of us came through the portal. I merely happened to wander into the small demon city by chance to try and find a way to connect with the other vampires. Everything that happened was indeed a coincidence. I have never met Hinata before or heard of her. The first time I saw her, she asked me to stay away from her and the other vampires for the time being. I intended to do the same, but the auction caught my interest. As for the Demon Lord's heir, I have no idea who he was and why he was there. I was equally shocked to find someone like that in that small demon city. Demora's eyes narrowed. Let's say I believe your words and your ridiculous explanation. Still, how do you explain the heir's sudden misfortune? What caused his condition to become like that out of nowhere? Damon chuckled inwardly. Now they have finally come to the main point of this interrogation. He already knew that this was the main reason why he was dragged here. Countless new vampires enter these mountains every day, and they couldn't care less about it. In fact, they welcomed the spread of the race. There was really no reason to question him like this. They wanted his secret, that too for free. Damon only shrugged. I'm just a blood acolyte, my lady. How am I supposed to be responsible for something like that? I simply got lucky, and that is the truth. Gathering 2.5 billion gold coins to pay for reinforcement for my blood hall is really my limit. I am not capable of doing something like this. Alaric snorted. No, my lady, don't trust him. For all we know, he could be a spy planted by the heir to infiltrate the Crimson Mountains and gather information. Many new vampires come to the Crimson Mountains, so I have heard. You are free to come with me through the portal and take a look at my blood hall. I am not hiding anything. Alaric shook his head firmly. My lady, this man, that's enough. Demora snapped at him. This conversation is going nowhere, and I do not like to waste my time. Her gaze then landed on Damon again. Young acolyte, you better watch your step. For now, I am granting you permission to step into the Crimson Mountains, but the family will be watching your actions. Any misstep, and the next time there will be no meeting to discuss your fate. Damon bowed slightly. Understood, my lady. Thank you for your hospitality. Demora did not care for his words so much. She waved a hand, and the guard stepped forward. Escort him, she ordered. Alaric's face changed, but he did not say anything. The two elders immediately left after that, and Alaric, too, followed in their footsteps. Clearly, he was planning to talk their ears some more. Hinata glared at him. I don't understand what his problem is. Don't worry, there is nothing he can do. You can come with me now. I will get you everything you need and help you take a tour of the place. Damon nodded with a smile. I would greatly appreciate that. Thanks. He wanted to tell her that the vampire Alaric was probably causing all of this ruckus because she suddenly wanted to help him so much, but he decided to leave that part out. He had no plans to interfere in the affairs between these two. He did not want to step into any more mess than he had already had. This way, Hinata said. She pushed open a heavy door and led him into another room. It was a big room with luxurious seating. Can you wait here for a few seconds? She then called over a vampire attendant, from the looks of it another blood acolyte like himself, and walked out of the room with him discussing something seriously. A few minutes later, Hinata once again entered the room, and this time she was holding a bright ring with a crimson gemstone. Here, take this. Hinata held the ring out, palm flat. Everything you're going to need here is in this ring, a small welcome gift from me. Damon immediately accepted the ring. The ring itself was nothing special, it was just a spatial ring. He quickly bound it and scanned the contents inside. A family medallion, another ring, which should be the anti-fog ring, a few scrolls, and surprisingly, 1,000,000 gold coins along with 100,000 demonic mana cores. Damon took a closer look at the stack of scrolls, and they were maps to the main areas in and around the Crimson Mountains. These were exactly everything he needed at the moment. This is an extremely generous welcome gift, he whistled, and put on the anti-fog ring. It's not much, Hinata smiled, looking a little guilty. I should be doing a lot more, but I am afraid your life will only become harder if I get more involved.
Damon did not argue with that. "It's okay. Your friend Alaric was not wrong. You need to rest and recover. You faced that monster when he was at his full strength. Your injuries should be bad. You should take care of yourself." "Yes," Hinata nodded. "And you should let me know if you need any more help. I still owe you a lot for saving me and my group." The two of them continued to exchange a few more words, but Damon did not linger. He quickly bid her farewell and stepped out of the huge, sprawling, grand castle. "Finally, I can see shit," Damon grinned as he looked around. The fog that was there previously was now nowhere to be seen. Just like that, Damon had no idea what sort of magic could accomplish something like this, but he was here to find out more. He was finally at a place where he could unlock the full potential of his race and hopefully his bloodline. Damon walked over to the elven slave girl who was waiting for him quietly outside the castle. From the looks of it, she was still in the fog and blind, so when she heard his voice, she looked startled. "Don't worry, let's hit the market first, and I will buy you some essentials there." The elven girl did not really respond. Damon continued to walk, and she quietly followed him. "Make sure that you don't lose me." The two of them walked in silence as Damon first took out all the scrolls and activated them one after another. Immediately a flood of information entered his mind. He knew most of these things already, but still, these maps were a good refresher. His memory was far from perfect, and these maps helped in filling the gaps. He then headed over to the group of carriages waiting outside the enormous castle gates. Damon scanned them quickly. Some carriages wore the Valeros crest and had armored riders beside it. Others looked slightly less luxurious. He picked one of the less luxurious ones and walked over. "I need a ride to the market." The coachman gave him a simple nod. 1 gold coin. Damon bitterly smiled. It was a ridiculous amount for a simple carriage ride to the marketplace, but that was the norm in the Vamplands. Everything was fucking expensive. This was why even the vampires preferred to shop in the demon territories. Everything was basically a fucking ripoff. Damon paid the gold coin and got into the carriage. He then helped the elf climb up as well. As the carriage rolled out, he glanced back at the castle. Hinata stood on a balcony watching him leave. She even waved her hand. The vampiress had really come a full 180 on her personality. Damon returned it with a half smile and a wave. The ride to the market was short. The carriage soon stopped at the market entrance, which was practically deserted. Only a few vampires were walking about, and they were silent, minding their own business. Everything about the place was disciplined and regal, unlike the demon market areas, which were basically rowdy with public orgies and street brawls. This place was like some sort of official area. Damon shook his head helplessly. He was currently in the Valeros family market, which is why everything was this bad. The common markets in the other smaller mountains were much less stiff. In fact, he would be getting cheaper stuff if he headed over there immediately, but he didn't want the elven girl to be blind all the time. He walked over to one of the general shops and soon purchased a few more anti-fog rings, just in case his became damaged. "Here, wear this, and you will be able to see." He handed over one to the elven girl. He also handed over a spatial pouch to her with a bunch of clothes. She was currently dressed in plain clothes, and they did not look comfortable at all. He stretched his hand out with the ring and the pouch, but the elven girl didn't really accept it. Damon sighed. "Take it and wear it. This is an order." The girl flinched, and she lifted her trembling hands to accept it. He didn't want to be rude to her, but he was also short-pressed for time. Now that he was actually here, there were a lot of things he wanted to do. The next raid was going to happen in a couple of days, and there was a lot he needed to prepare before that. "Let's go over to the portal room." Damon started walking to the teleportation portal building next. The common markets were a lot better than this stuck-up place, and he wanted to go there. Besides, I'm pretty sure my movements were being tracked here. However, at the last minute, he decided to first take a look here. This was the Valeros family market, and there was a chance I could find something interesting here. The market was also not all that big. There is no harm in wandering around it for an hour or so. Looking around, he walked over to the skill shop first to take a look at their collection. Damon did not really expect much, considering that it was just a simple skill shop, but he was pleasantly surprised when he checked out the contents. There were basic skills of almost all classes neatly arranged, some of which even he hadn't collected yet. On top of that, there were also several vampire racial skill books. In fact, it had everything that a blood acolyte needed. It even had a couple of skills that a blood expert could use, but nothing beyond that. Damon was not surprised by it. Skill books were quite rare after all. The fact that there were these many skill books available was in itself very surprising. It had to be because this was the special clan marketplace for the Valeros family. If he was not wrong, then this marketplace shouldn't really be accessible to the general public. Only friends and members of the clan should be able to shop here. Thankfully, Hinata had given him a family medallion. He flashed the medallion to the shopkeeper and then went on a shopping spree. He picked Blood Sense first, as the skill had extremely good synergy with his primordial senses, and he had a feeling that it could be amplified further when combined with it. Then he picked Knight's Grace to get a passive 10% boost in all attributes at night, a no-brainer must-have skill for all vampires. There was Blood Reservoir, which he already had, but he picked up 2 books for Kate and Mark. Now that he thought about it, they probably needed the other skills as well. He doubled back and picked 3 copies for everything. He then made it 10 just in case Elora, Kalethorn, and Aaron lacked any. It was always good to have some backups, considering he would be making more followers in the future. Then there was Blood Spike, Blood Whip, Blood Shield, Blood Mark, and Blood Bind. The first 3 skills could essentially be obtained from blood manipulation, but Damon decided to buy them anyway to see if he could get extra mastery in blood manipulation. As for Blood Mark and Blood Bind, they were rare skills that would definitely come in handy. Blood Mark was an interesting skill with many uses, while Blood Bind was an amazing control skill. Both were must-haves. There were also Blood Spray, Blood Blink, Knight's Shadow, Blood Whisper, Blood Mirror, and Blood Lens. Blood Spray was an AoE damage skill. Blood Blink conveniently improved the range of the Blink skill. The same went for Knight's Shadow. He now had so many shadow skills that he was on the verge of creating a powerful shadow skill. Blood Whisper was an amazing utility skill. If he was not wrong, he would now be able to talk to Kate, Aaron, and Mark right now through this skill, whispered directly in their ears. Blood Mirror was a defense skill that deflects partial damage, and Blood Lens was another great utility skill, which helps in finding out hidden traps in enemies. Most of these skills had amazing synergy with his existing skills and his bloodline abilities, and Damon's eyes lit up with excitement. He couldn't wait to try them out. In his last life, he had to struggle and grind a lot just to obtain one of these skill books. There would either be insanely long chain quests, or there would be a brutal monster grind to get the low-probability skill book drop. Even then, he had never managed to get all of these amazing skills. Whenever he had watched other top players use these skills casually, he could only drool over them. Obtaining one was next to impossible without allocating at least 3 or 4 months to it. And now, everything was completely different. All of these amazing skill books were simply laid out in front of him. Damon was like a kid in a candy store. His fingers went crazy as he started emptying out shelf after shelf in the skill book shop. A woman walked over to him, eyeing him suspiciously. "Excuse me, Acolyte, might I remind you that each of these books costs 1,000 gold coins?" Damon laughed. "That's fine." The woman did not look convinced. She looked at his ragged appearance and then clicked her tongue. "How about you first pay for some of these books before continuing to browse the other collections?" Damon grinned like an idiot. "All right," he said. "Count me in. Wrap them up." The woman still looked doubtful. "How many have you picked out so far?"
Damon pointed to a stack of skill books on the side. It started small, but right now the stack was almost touching the roof of the shop. The attendant's face twitched. "You are telling me that you have the gold coins to pay for all of that?" Blood magic sparked around her. "You're going to have to stay back and clean up all of this mess, understand? Stop messing around and stop wasting time. I'm not sure if you are new here, but there are severe consequences for unruly behavior in the Valeros family territory. This is not a commoner's marketplace where you can do whatever you please. Here, you need to act with discipline. You need to follow the rules. Otherwise, I'm going to have to report you." Damon was about to explain to her when someone else interrupted her. "What is all this commotion? Do you need any help, Marianne?" A man walked over and gave a quick look at Damon. Of course, he too jumped to the same conclusion. "Who are you and why are you causing trouble here? Shall I call the guards?" The vampire had been working here for a long time, and he already knew all the high-ranking members of the clan. He could also tell that Damon was a newcomer. He took it as a good chance to show off his authority and score with the woman. "Just because a shop attendant is good-looking, you cannot come waltzing in here and harassing her. Are you going to leave, or shall I call the guards?" The guy put on a lofty expression and spoke arrogantly, while at the same time checking to make sure that the woman Marianne was pleased. Damon sighed. Clearly, talking was not going to work with these two. He silently took out a spatial pouch, transferred some gold coins into it, and tossed it onto the table. "There, I have paid for the first 100 books. Now can I continue browsing?" "Huh? What 100 gold coins? Puh! You can't even buy a single page with that measly amount. Do you even know how much a single skill book costs? Who let you inside the clan market? Are you a stray?" The guy scoffed and continued his rambling. His eyes then quickly darted to Marianne to check if she was still pleased with his response. But unexpectedly, she stood frozen like a statue. Her mouth was open, and her eyes were widened, and she stared at Damon without blinking. Did you just say you paid for 100 books?" she stammered. She hurriedly grabbed the spatial pouch and confirmed the contents within. Her body started trembling, and she looked up, swallowing nervously. "I am so sorry, my lord. I was stupid just now. Please forgive my impudence. I will immediately pack these books up for you. Please feel free to continue browsing and let me know if I can assist you in any way." Damon nodded. He was not in the mood to make this silly thing a big deal, so he casually waved his hand and continued looking. 1,000 gold coins was indeed a lot of money, but it was nothing compared to the usefulness of these skill books and the time it would save everyone on his team. He browsed through the shelves and started pulling out more and more skill books. Meanwhile, the other guy looked unhappy. He thought that he had finally obtained a chance to impress Marianne, but everything backfired on him. Still, he was quite confident that they did not have to be so nervous. After all, money was not everything. "Excuse me, before you start taking out any more skill books, please wait. Just money alone is not enough to make a purchase in this shop. Moreover, you can only buy 1 or 2 books at most. You cannot come in here and buy whatever you want, even if you have somehow managed to procure the gold coins." This time, Damon did not even bother looking at the guy. He took out the medallion Hinata had given him and showed it. "Is this enough, or should I call Hinata personally to come here and vouch for me?" Damon did not hesitate at all. He freely used her name and threw her weight around. This was precisely why he had taken such a big risk and entered the Valeros family, so he did not plan to shy away now. The trick worked like a charm. Hearing Hinata's name, both shop attendants looked utterly dumbfounded. They were even more shocked at her name than at the pouch of coins. For a full second, both attendants simply stared, mouths open. Hinata Valeros?" Marianne blurted. Her earlier bossiness drained away like water. The other man's bravado vanished in the same heartbeat. His shoulders dropped, and he looked suddenly small. "Yes," Damon said casually, slipping the medallion back into his spatial ring. "She gave it to me." "My lord," The two of them immediately prostrated themselves in front of him. They did not even dare to open their mouths anymore. They were visibly shaking and trembling. I sighed. Enough. Stand up. I did not come here for theatrics. Both of them scrambled to their feet like they had been electrocuted, faces flushed and obedient. Keep a tally of everything I'm pulling out and tell me the total amount. Put it all in a spatial ring and hand it to me. Damon did not bother with them anymore. He continued his shopping and pulled out everything he wanted left and right. He did not hold back at all. He did not want to go overboard, but he simply couldn't help himself. All the skill books were extremely important for combat and other things. In the end, he coughed up about 5 million gold coins when he was done shopping in the skill book store, almost cleaning out 50% of their inventory. Even if it was the clan market's special store, there were only limited skill books available. Skill book drops were quite rare, and this was expected. Damon single-handedly cleaned out half of it and stepped out of the shop, grinning from ear to ear. After having devoured skills from many monsters, he had amassed quite a bit of skills from the other classes and races, but he had always felt that his personal development in the blood department was lagging behind. Today, he had taken a significant step in that direction as well. Oh, before I leave, I have one more thing to ask you. I almost forgot. Do you know where I can obtain good movement techniques and body tempering techniques? Damon turned around and asked the two trembling attendants. Damon was hoping that he would find these techniques in another shop down the line. That would make his life a lot easier. But the two vampires only shook their heads negatively. Those scrolls are only available in the family vault, my lord. We do not know those sorts of things. Damon half expected this, so he simply waved and walked away. The elven girl was waiting for him outside, and she quietly followed him. The two of them walked along the streets, and Damon checked out the other shops. There were potion shops, weapon shops, armor shops, cloth shops, and other shops which were similarly selling items and gear. Damon scanned these shops quickly. While some of their wares were impressive, nothing was truly eye-catching. Most of them were rare-grade items, with only a couple of epic items. These epic item stats were nothing to write home about. Damon skipped buying anything in these shops. When it came to equipment purchase, he had another shop in mind. Damon stopped by the potion shop next and stocked up on a few high-grade health potions, mana potions, and recovery potions. Each of these was being sold for ridiculous prices, 100 gold coins a pop, so he did not buy too much, just 10 of each. Instead, he bought about a dozen scrolls in these shops. Scrolls containing recipes were dirt cheap. These recipe scroll drops were equally rare as skill books, but not many vampires were talented in alchemy. This was why recipe scrolls were sold for next to nothing, while potions were sold for sky-high prices. Damon had already planned to make these purchases in the commoner market, but the Valeros family market had much better quality recipes and a huge variety of potion recipes. He purchased as many as he could and continued browsing. But it looked like this was the last of the loopholes he could take advantage of. He tried to procure some recipes for his blacksmiths, but that turned out to be a dead end. The vampires were not bad at everything. It turned out that the weapon recipes and item recipes typically sold like hotcakes and would be emptied as soon as they showed up in any shop. Heck, it was only a rare occasion for any even to pop up. This was why most of the market was filled with item shops, as many were into forging, leatherworking, and tailoring, creating more gear than what the market demanded. The most common shop was the rune shop, where rune masters engrave enchantments on everything, boosting all attributes of weapons and armor. Damon browsed for some time and wandered through the market before he finally prepared to leave. Coincidentally, he came across one last shop. It was a scroll shop. All sorts of scrolls were sold inside the shop, including teleportation scrolls. Similar scrolls were available in the Light faction as well, but the scrolls here teleported vampires to the Crimson Mountains, just like their counterparts teleported humans to selected cities. The only condition was that they had to be on this continent. The activation also took about 5 minutes, which was a big inconvenience. The scroll was also pretty easily interrupted. Overall, it had a lot of drawbacks, but the usefulness of the scroll was still off the charts. With this, Damon would easily be able to get the others here. It would also save him a lot of travel time while exploring the areas in and around the Crimson Mountains. With his previous life knowledge and with the information he had received from Hinata's maps, Damon already had a good idea of all the places he needed to rush to. He needed to grab as many cheats as he possibly could before they were scooped up by someone else or some other situation. Many new things have occurred in this lifetime, and the timeline has undergone considerable changes. There was no guarantee that all his cheats and small boosts would remain untouched, waiting for him to claim them. It was best to grab them as fast as possible. Damon bought a few dozen teleportation scrolls. He also bought some other magic scrolls which had the ability to do decent mass AoE damage. These would come extremely handy in the next Blood Hall battle. After dropping a good amount of gold in the scroll shop, Damon finally walked over to another set of carriages, ready to leave. While the Valeros clan market was quite good, the commoners' market had a lot more variety of goods. He also needed to meet that person. Kate and Mark lacked good weapons, and so did he. If he was not wrong, then the old quest chain for an epic-grade staff should still be available with that man. In his last life, Aiden picked up this quest and obtained the staff for himself, but in this lifetime, it would be his. Damon silently paid the 10 gold coins required and got onto a carriage along with the elven girl. The carriage driver gave him a look when he mentioned the commoners' market, but after getting paid, he was more than happy to take them wherever. Damon let out a sigh as the carriage picked up speed and left the Valeros gates. All the carriages were usually driven by blood manes, tamed demonic horse-like beasts that had blood-red manes. They were quite fast, and Damon had always liked them. Their rhythmic movements were very calming. Damon leaned back and looked outside. A lot of things were on his mind. Now that he was here, he suddenly had a lot more to do and accomplish. The blow he had dealt to the Super 10 would not hold for too long. He needed to act again before he had another chance to recover. Since he was on the Dark Continent currently, he was not able to access the world chat and such, and wondered what was going on the Light Continent right about now. Had the big shots already started making their moves against the Abyssal Zone? His mind wandered as he thought about nothing in particular, gazing at the familiar scenery outside the carriage. The Crimson Mountains were just like the other parts of the Dark Continent, with the dull purple sky and the barren lands all around. Small demonic creatures scurried about here and there, red-eyed bunnies and twisted horned goats, the Dark Continent version of starter beasts for newbie players. Of course, as they headed out further and further from the Valeros gates, more stronger demonic beasts would appear, but the carriage drivers were very experienced. They usually took the best and shortest routes to the destination, avoiding all unnecessary conflicts. Every carriage also had a guard who was more than capable of handling any unexpected visitors. These visitors were not a problem for Damon. He also knew the way from the Valeros Mountain to the Commoners Mountain, both from the map and his knowledge from his previous time around. However, he still preferred using a carriage. This was because the Crimson Mountains had one more special feature. They always moved around, and the path never remained the same. Paths in the Crimson Mountains never stayed the same. Just like the fog, this was also one of the mysteries of the vampire territory. It was a common legend that there were magical formations beneath every one of these mountains. These formations made sure that the location of two mountains never stayed the same for more than a few hours.
A road that existed at dawn could be a cliff by dusk. A pass you trusted yesterday might be swallowed whole by a root-backed slide the next hour. That meant travel here was never about maps alone. Drivers and scouts earned their stripes by reading the skies rather than the ground. There was an entire network of vampires dedicated to this. However, the information was only available to high-tiered nobles. Commoners like him had to either cough up the gold coins for the carriage rides or go through endless struggles just to reach a random place. There were instances where many had died directly because of this issue. The only saving grace was that there weren't any C-rank or above monsters in the territory. There were mostly only harmless F-rank beasts or slightly annoying D-rank and E-rank beasts. Players could still die to those beasts if they got caught off guard. A wrong step, a collapsed path, a surprised burrowed thing, and one was done before they could blink. Damon had died many times like this in his last life. Now things had changed so much that he was casually hiring a carriage just to not waste time and procrastinate about the other things on his to-do list. He chuckled inwardly as he turned to look at the elven girl who was now fast asleep. At least now she was comfortable enough to fall asleep, which was progress. Damon took out a skill book while he waited. His hands had been itching since he had bought them, and this seemed as good a time as any to start learning everything. With a big smile on his face, he mentally activated the first skill book, Blood Sense. This was the skill book he was most excited about. He wanted to see if he could somehow combine it with his primordial senses and boost the power of the skill. Blood Sense. Passive. D rank. You subtly sense blood and blood auras in the nearby areas. The explanation was simple, but Damon felt a rush of information flooding his brain as he learned the skill, and the skill book in his hand disappeared. He closed his eyes and focused on everything. Even though he already knew how to reach out and get a feel for blood auras, he still paid attention to the skill book contents. After some time, he closed his eyes and tried to sense the blood auras nearby. There were mostly small ones, probably of the demonic beasts around them. Damon then focused and really tried to sense the world around him, activating his primordial senses. The next second, everything changed. Instead of the normal world around him, he saw veins of blood, thin threads of red lines running around everywhere, and bright blobs where life or mana pooled. For an instant, he could see every single blood aura that was present on the mountain they were closest to. He was used to reading blood auras, but never like this, never spread out so wide, never so bright. Damon's mind could only hold so much before he felt a searing pain and was forced to stop. However, in the last second, suddenly his eyes widened. Blood tears dripped from his eyes as he stared in shock at the bottom of the mountain. There was something there. A strong blood aura, the strongest he had ever seen or felt. A single blood aura so huge and hot it felt like a sun. Infinite energy contained within it. What the hell was it? Just glancing at it for a fraction of a second made him feel extreme danger. His senses screamed danger, and he immediately snapped out of it. He forced himself to step out of the focus. The red map snapped closed like a book slammed shut. The pain in his head eased, but the image of that brightness was already burned into his mind. He could feel it beneath the mountain, beating like a monstrous heart that contained infinite blood essence. Fuck. Damon cursed under his breath as he tried to calm down. For a moment, he still felt as if something was going to pop out of the mountain and stand in front of him, but no such thing happened. The carriage continued moving, and the horses continued to beat the ground into a steady rhythm. Outside, the mountains rolled by in slow shapes, black stone, twisted trees, the pale smear of sky. Damon forced his breathing to slow. The image of that blood sun kept flashing behind his eyes, hot and impossible. He rubbed his temples until stars popped in his vision. The pain eased, but the cold knot in his gut didn't.
He had felt power before, but nothing had ever hit him like that, not even the aura of that woman back in the abyssal zone, or the avatar of the demon god he had faced back on Earth. What the hell was going on? What was that? More importantly, was something like that beneath every mountain? Was that perhaps the trump card of all the vampire clans in the Crimson Mountain territory? Several questions popped up in Damon's mind. He had no answers to any of them. The only thing he knew was that he couldn't use his primordial senses in this region again, at least until he became strong enough. Otherwise, his jig would be up and some insane old monster would easily grab his bloodline, even if it meant tearing him apart cell by cell. Damon shook himself and tried to snap out of it. After a few minutes, he was finally able to calm down a little, and he went back to the rest of his skill books. The first one had worked out just like he had hoped and even given him a small heart attack. He could only hope that the others would be more straightforward and give him a straight dose of power.
Damon took out simpler skill books to learn from next. Knight's Grace, Blood Whip, Blood Spike, Blood Sword, Blood Bind, and a few other skill books lay piled up near him as he started learning them one after the other. Even though he did not really need to learn some of these skills, he hoped it would still give him some insights into blood manipulation and decided to learn them anyway. Damon's crimson eyes flashed as information flooded his brain continuously. Knight's Grace went in first. It was mostly a passive thing, sharpening his reflexes and speed and agility a little more at night. Then came the attack skills. While Damon was fully immersed in learning the various skills, the carriage driver's eyes darted to Damon's figure every now and then. Especially the sight of so many skill books made his eyes widen slightly. The vampire then exchanged a quick glance with the guard. The guard didn't take his eyes off Damon either. Both of them had plenty of experience, and this was not the first time they had come across a commoner who had run into a stroke of luck. A mere blood acolyte daring to possess such wealth? A couple of minutes passed, and the guard finally gave the go signal. If the damned bastard consumed all the skill books in his possession, then their profits would be reduced. The carriage driver returned the nod and then continued leading the horses. A couple more minutes passed by when suddenly loud howls resounded near them. A pack of bloodhounds burst out, eyes glowing amber. They were all level 50, and their numbers were also extremely impressive. There were about a couple dozen of them. Bloodhounds always traveled in huge packs, which made them extra dangerous. The driver's face instantly went white. He didn't think twice. He threw down the reins and ran for the trees, shouting as he went. The guard leapt to his feet and grabbed his polearm, planting himself between the animals and the carriage. He parried and blocked the hounds, keeping a few of them engaged. While he was not outright overwhelmed by the beasts, he also couldn't exactly defeat them fast enough. Most of the beasts ran around him and headed straight for Damon and the elven girl. Damon still looked like he was completely engrossed in the skill books. The elven girl, on the other hand, was fast asleep. The girl was clearly sleeping after many sleepless nights, so she was sleeping like a log, not even hearing the loud howls of the hounds. The guard sneered, and the carriage driver, who was observing the scene from a distance, grinned. This was going to be the easiest haul they had ever had. The duo could almost taste the savory meat and the rich blood wine they were going to celebrate this win with when Damon finally flashed his eyes open. The next second, blood spheres appeared all around them. There were exactly 35 blood spheres, one for each hound, and then 2 more for the carriage driver and the guard. Damon smiled viciously as he watched the scene in amusement. It had been a long time since someone had tried to rob him. He tilted his head, and the next moment the spheres started shooting blood swords toward the hounds and the 2 vampires. A dozen hounds fell at once, howling and thrashing as the blood swords slashed at them multiple times. Blood essence from their dying bodies freely flowed into Damon. The 2 vampires gawked in horror at the scene unfolding. They had never seen anyone commanding blood like this. This was a blood expert. No, maybe not even a blood expert.
Only a blood master or a general could possibly do something like this. Both the vampires trembled in fear as they realized how badly they had fucked up. "My lord, please forgive me. I have a family to support." The carriage driver straight up collapsed on the ground and started wailing loudly. The guard, on the other hand, tried to block the blood swords, gritting his teeth. It looked like he still hoped that his cover was not blown. "Don't forgive that wretch. Kill him, my lord. He tried to have us both ambushed and steal from us." The carriage driver became shocked. "Romius, you liar! You demonic swine! He's lying, my lord. The both of us were in on this together." Their accusations crashed over each other until they sounded ridiculous and helpless. Damon watched them for a second with a smile. He then lazily waved his hand, ending the both of them with a mere thought. "Sorry about that. Usually I'm not this petty, but I do need something from the two of you." He chuckled. The next moment his shadow wavered and a clone appeared, walking towards the two corpses. The clone swiftly picked up all the belongings and returned to Damon. It then went back to pick up all the drops from the dead hounds. Most of them had demonic cores. There were also some hides and teeth that had dropped. Damon was more interested in the personal belongings of the duo. He rummaged through them until he found a crimson crystal in the carriage driver's spatial pouch. The guard did not have any, but at least the carriage driver did not disappoint. Damon bound the crimson crystal, and immediately a map flashed in front of him. It was the current map of the Crimson Mountains, given out by the scouting network. With this, he easily had the path to wherever he was headed. "There we go. Now we can be on our own without any drama." He tossed the crystal back into his ring and then jumped out of the carriage. The elven girl was still sleeping, completely oblivious to everything. Damon shook his head helplessly and picked her up. He then dashed forward on the narrow, winding path at top speed with a smile on his face. However, in just a couple of seconds, the smile on his face froze, along with his body. Damon was unable to take a single step forward, no matter how much he tried.
Damon tried a lot. He tried moving forward, he tried moving back, he pushed with both his legs. Nothing. He put the elven woman in his hand down and tried using blink and shadow step, but nothing worked. He was able to activate his mana, his blood essence, and his primordial mana core, but when it came to using the mana on his movement skills, nothing was happening. He was able to conjure both his defensive blood barrier and offensive blood lance, even a wind arrow, easily. He was able to cast whatever skill he wanted, but moving out of that spot seemed to be simply impossible. Spells that should lift him or fold space just hit an invisible wall. Damon rubbed his chin. His magic was working. That meant that he should technically be able to activate his teleportation tattoo. Could that work? What about the teleportation scrolls? Once again, everything ended in a failure. The teleportation tattoo activated, but he was still in the same spot. Teleportation scrolls similarly were activated, but it kept getting interrupted. He wasted 5 scrolls before giving up. Teleportation was out of question, movement was out of question, while magic of every other kind worked. In a way, this was good because at least he was not completely locked without any means to protect himself, but why the hell was he spatially confined? Damon frowned. It meant someone had set up a very specific kind of trap. Before he could wonder what was happening, a system notification flashed in front of him. Bing! You have been afflicted with a curse. Damon's eyes widened in shock. What now? A curse? What the heck? He looked around and found absolutely no one. He used his newly acquired skill, Blood Lens, and a bloody aura covered his eyes. He once again looked around and found nothing at all, no one hiding around him in stealth. Sure, his skill could possibly have some loopholes, but he was in the middle of nowhere in the ever-changing Crimson Mountains. There was no chance that somebody had been following him all the way here. The only one who could have reached him was Alaric, but the vampire only barely knew him. There was some friction between them, so maybe he was responsible for this.
But knowing the guy so far and his proud personality, he wouldn't be hiding in the shadows cursing him. He would have directly confronted him, attacked him with full force. It just did not make sense. What the hell was happening? Could it perhaps be connected to the Demon Lord's heir? He had used a secret method to take him out after all, but as far as he knew, there shouldn't be any consequences for the method, especially since he used a shadow clone. Damon looked around, waiting for the enemy to reveal themselves, or for that matter, something else to happen, but nothing did. There was no one else around him. He and the elven girl were all alone. So what now? He sat down and let out a sigh. Even with his experience of 2 lifetimes, he was simply stumped as to how someone managed to do something like this, to not even be present near him and to be able to cast a curse like this. They would have to have contacted someone very powerful to pull this off, or if it was a player, then they would have to have a very unique class and skill, a very high-tier one, perhaps even an S-class. Damon could think of only one group who could possibly possess a powerful player like this and be interested in meddling with him. As for the purpose behind all of this, Damon smiled. He already knew that very well. Why should someone do something like this right now? The Blood Hall battle. That had to be it. That was the only reason he could think of. Here he was making final preparations before heading back to the Niera City Blood Hall, and all of a sudden he was afflicted with a strange curse that prevented him from moving. Someone was definitely trying to stop him from returning to the Blood Hall. The Super 10? Aiden? Did they not get enough from the Abyssal Zone, or perhaps they had already recovered from that blow? Did their powers run even deeper than he had assumed? Damon clicked his tongue. It was not like they could keep this on forever. All curses had a limit after all, especially a powerful one like this, a curse that had the ability to lock him in place. Damon's guess would be about 48 to 72 hours. That should definitely be the upper limit of the curse. He was positive about it. That would also be a few hours after the Blood Hall battle started and probably ended. Someone had planned everything thoroughly from start to finish. He closed his eyes and focused, pushing away all of the unnecessary thoughts from his mind. A curse, huh? The plan was good. Preventing him from stepping in could give the other side a lot of advantages. His presence might even change the outcome of the battle. But he still had a lot of tricks up his sleeve. He was not going to lose this second battle so easily over a fucking curse. He opened up his system interface to send out some messages, only to find that his system communications were locked up. A vicious grin crept up on Damon's face. They had truly locked him from every which way, didn't they? The curse looked like it was an extremely powerful one. Not only did it block him location-wise, it had also cut off his communications. It had completely locked him down. But just how powerful was it? Was it powerful enough to stand toe-to-toe with his bloodline? Damon took out a skill book that he was yet to learn. Blood Whisper. Damon activated the skill book, and a flood of information immediately rushed into his mind. Blood Whisper, the skill he can use to communicate with people marked by his blood. Now it was time to see if the almighty curse could block even this skill, a skill that used his very blood to communicate. Damon closed his eyes, activated the skill, and focused. The next instant, he found himself in a dark place in the middle of nowhere. No ground, no sky, just empty dark. It was as if he were standing in a void, but he was not alone. Threads sprang out from him in all directions, thin red threads, black threads, and even some that were golden in color. No, not some, many. Once the golden threads started appearing, they simply took over the whole space. Damon was utterly shocked. There were millions of these threads. He felt as if his mind was going to break from the sheer number of them. His entire being suddenly felt shaky and weak. The more he looked at these threads, the more the pain. He only barely managed to reach out to one thin red line before everything snapped and he was kicked out of the void. Damon gasped, still feeling the effect of the skill. What the fuck was that? Why were there so many threads? He had only expected 6 or 10, as he had only so many followers and bound beasts or other beings. But to have so many threads? He forced himself to breathe slowly. His heart thudded, his head throbbed. The void was still there, like a bruise in his head. That many threads had overloaded him completely. Moreover, he did not even get a chance to reach for any of the thread. It was not like he could try this skill again. Something told him that his soul would simply explode if he attempted to do such a thing one more time. Another useless skill? Or maybe he overdid it. Damon silently pondered on everything he had seen. The most puzzling thing was that the number of golden threads was a lot more than the number of red threads and black threads. If all these threads are related to him by blood, then what did the 3 colors mean? He closed his eyes and suddenly remembered something. Aaron. He had felt Aaron when he had reached out through the thin red thread in that final moment before everything snapped shut. Wait a second. If the thin red threads meant his blood-bound followers like Aaron, Mark, and Kate, and if all the threads were connected to him by his blood, what could the hundreds of golden threads be? It was not like he had any relation to these hundreds of people. Could they be the people whose blood he had devoured? No, that did not make sense. Even though he had consumed their blood, his blood did not really have anything to do with them. A thought suddenly popped into his mind. Could they possibly be the other beings with his bloodline? Damon froze as he thought about it. He only had a fraction of his bloodline. What if the fraction he had was really small? What if his bloodline powers were currently weak and had these many limitations because he shared his bloodline with these many beings? And then there was the fact that he was able to reach out to them, or at least picture them. But what if someone stronger on the other end could do the same thing and reach out to him? Then wouldn't they be able to hunt him down and devour him, consuming his bloodline and everything he had gathered so far? Damon shuddered. He suddenly realized something. He was in a fucking race. His bloodline, the ticking bomb, was even more dangerous than he had ever realized. It was either hunt or be hunted. He needed to strengthen his mind and soul fast enough. He needed to be the first one to reach for the others and devour them. Otherwise, he would be the one who was devoured. Damon pulled himself together. Panic wouldn't help. He needed to think clearly, and he needed to grow stronger. He closed his eyes, calmed down, and took a few breaths. First things first, he once again tried to reach out with the same skill, but this time he did not overdo it like the last time. In fact, he did not activate the skill itself. He merely willed to communicate with Aaron, and the next moment he could feel a cold, poisonous aura. "My lord, is that you?" Damon smiled. "Aaron, where are you right now? Have you recovered sufficiently?" Meanwhile, back in the Light Faction continent. "Are you sure that the curse is in place and is fully working?" Michael sternly looked at Violet and asked. The Dark Princess, however, only scoffed in response. "Why, are you doubting my skills now?" "Bro, come on. You need to relax, and you need to trust others a little. Violet is unbeatable when it comes to stuff like this. I'm still trying to get out of the love curse she cast on me." Reinhard winked at the woman sitting opposite him in the huge meeting hall. Michael completely ignored the guy and continued. "I am not doubting your skills. I also don't have to tell you how important this battle is. When the gate to the Golden Throne opens, this buffoon absolutely cannot have any sort of upper hand. Do you understand?" Violet scoffed, but did not say anything. "This curse has to hold on." Michael spelled it out again. "There cannot be any errors. We need to be the first in line for the Golden Throne. So let me ask you this again. Do you have any ways to track the effectiveness of the curse? Is it going to become defective over time, and is there any chance for that buffoon to break the curse before the timer?"
Negative.
Viola firmly shook her head. "There is absolutely nothing he could do to get out of my grasp, and by the time the curse weakens, everything would already be over. His blood hall would have fallen, and he would become a nobody in this continent. I suggest you go and take care of the other matters instead of wasting time asking these useless questions to me." Viola then stood up and directly left the room without giving Michael any face. "Ouch, that's gotta hurt." Reynard laughed. "The golden boy completely ignored." He stood up and patted Michael. "It's okay, relax and take it easy. Beautiful women are like that. They can treat us however they want. It's the rule, bro." Michael shrugged him away, and the next second he too was gone from the room. Only Reynard remained. A cunning glint silently appeared in his eyes, but it quickly disappeared as he went back to his casual demeanor. He laughed loudly and stepped out of the room as well. A few hours slid by, and then 2 whole days passed. Where the hell is he? He could have at least sent me a freaking message before disappearing like this. Kate walked back and forth in the throne room of the Blood Hall. It had been almost 2 days now, and yet she had not heard a single thing from Damon. "You are acting like some sort of worried housewife," Mark teased her. Kate shot him a glare, which made him laugh nervously. All right. But you know how he is. He's always doing something. Maybe he's in a situation where he can't contact us. We can't do anything. We can only wait and see." Kate grit her teeth. "Come on, there should be something we can do." She continued pacing back and forth in the room. Elora, Calethorn, and Riven silently waited in the back of the throne room, everyone listening intently, but no one daring to say anything. Well, at least not Calethorn and Elora. All of a sudden, Riven spoke up. My lady, can't we simply ask the vampires arriving here? Can't they make a portal to the Crimson Mountains or whatever that place is? Maybe then we can go over there and search for the Lord." Varnix, who walked into the room, answered the question on Kate's behalf. The legacy families of the Crimson Mountains would never risk something like that for the sake of a small blood hall like ours. Opening a portal from here to there is like giving the light factions direct access to our inner sanctum. They will never agree to it. Varnix then turned to Kate and Mark and bowed his head respectfully, showing the same respect he usually showed for Damon. Damon might be the current Blood Hall Lord, but these two were individuals with a god's blessing, and in his eyes, that demanded a much higher reverence. "My lady and my lord, we have received news. The holy and divine dogs have finally made their move. The army has started marching and should arrive at our doorstep in a couple of hours. The battle is about to start any time now. We need to prepare ourselves and mobilize our units. Shall I give the final command?" Kate stammered a little, not knowing what to do, but Mark decisively answered, taking command. "Yes, make the announcement. Everything should be perfect. The Lord has paid 2.5 billion gold coins. It is not a simple amount. The reinforcements had better be prepared. Everything has to go perfectly, and both our offense and defense have to be rock solid. We will win this battle, with or without our Blood Hall Lord. Make it clear." Since there was no way he could help Damon personally, this was the least he could do. He would make sure that they did not lose this battle under any circumstances. Varnix bowed again, and then quickly rolled out a crude map on a low table. "Please, my lord, take a look at the plan and let me know if it is to your liking." He outlined the entire city and the newly stationed reinforcements. He pointed to the roads the army would use and where he was putting the mages and the archers. He outlined all the big details of the battle setup and waited for Mark's response. Mark took a moment and observed everything. He did his best to see if there was anything he could contribute, but at the end of the day, Varnix was a lot more talented and experienced than he ever was, especially in these sorts of things. He could only agree with his planning. "Where do you think I should start?"
he asked the old vampire for his opinion, but Varnex immediately shook his head. "My lord, I think you should wait. I think that we should first get the lay of the land before you step in." Mark nodded. The vampire then quickly made his move, while Mark and Kate were left staring at each other. "Fuck, this is really happening," Kate finally spoke. "How are we going to win without him?" Mark also had a grave look on his face. "We have to win no matter what. There is simply no other choice." "What do we actually do first?" Kate was very nervous. The last time around, they were merely fighting as part of the army, but this time, everything was different. Mark calmly pointed to the main roads on the map. "We lock the gates. We set the archers on the rooftops and the mages where they can cover the lines of advance. The army holds in reserve behind the eastern ridge. If the dogs break the front, we funnel them into the kill zone by the old market. Mages here and here, healers separated into 3 groups, and the rest we would have to see and arrange based on how everything progresses." Elora stepped forward. "I'll take the forward squad with Calethorn. We'll hold the center road." Kate drew in a breath. The plan was practical, tidy, but would it really work? 2.5 billion gold coins had earned them a lot of reinforcements, high quality and fully geared. But was it really enough to hold back against a tide of kingdom NPCs and priests and divine NPCs? She did not want to disappoint Damon, no matter what. "Mark, can you tell me again where I should be and what I should be doing?" Mark nodded and repeated the whole thing. While the group continued to discuss the possible course of battle and every hurdle they could potentially face, a loud noise interrupted them. "Guys, where is Big Bro? I have some important news for him." Bloodwraith swaggered into the throne room, a grin plastered on his face. Phoenix followed behind him, calm as a dark pond, eyes scanning the room. "What happened?" Mark turned to look at them. Big Bro is not there? Okay, anyways, you guys are going to laugh at this. Do you know what the other players are up to right now?" He laughed. "Check the world chat. This is hilarious. It is going to be a complete massacre. I mean, do these people not understand what Big Bro is capable of? Against him, even an army of players is completely useless. Just what are their idiots planning to achieve?" Mark's face fell. He had a feeling that the situation was not as funny as the guy was making it to be, and the moment he opened the world chat, he knew he was correct. The entire world was currently looking at Nira and talking about the vampire siege battle. The chat had previously been all about the Abyssal Zone and discussing seriously about how to crack that, but all of a sudden, somehow the attention seemed to have shifted once again to Blood God and Nira City. Someone talked about how easy it would be to farm reputation points and fame points in the large-scale battle, and this person's subtle encouragement made several players jump on the train to Nira City. Then the snowballing started, and it was impossible to take the city out of the spotlight. "Everyone, I heard that another vampire siege is going to go down in a couple of hours. I'm going over there. Who else wants to join me?" "Vampire siege, I'm there. Need healers and a few tanks. PM me." "Lol, are you guys joking? Last time everyone who went there got killed. It's suicide to go to Nira City today. Blood God will wipe the floor with you bitches." "Who's streaming this? I want to watch the chaos." "Fuck no, I am not going to get slaughtered again. I already lost a lot of levels in the Abyssal Zone." "Guys, I heard that the big shots from the Priest Hall and the Divine Temple are going to participate this time. There is no way Blood God is going to win this time." "Fuck you. Can't you see the leaderboards? That guy is the #1 powerhouse right now. There is no way he is going to lose." "He's just one guy. I heard thousands of NPCs are attacking Nira City this time. There is no way he is winning. I'm going there, bitches. So what if I die? It's just one death. Count me in. I need to get in on this. Your funeral. You will be eating shit when this thing goes downhill." And the chat continued in a similar fashion. Clearly, the public opinion was pretty much divided. Some wanted to join in, and some did not want to risk their items and levels. At the end of the day, the situation was not as bad as it could have been. At least the tipping point was not there.
There was no trigger that would create a mob mentality. Mark let out a small sigh of relief. With Damon missing, they really did not need this additional complication. Bloodwraith laughed and walked over to him, patting Mark on the shoulder. "Didn't I tell you that you will find this funny? Where is Big Bro? I want to talk to him about a few things. This time I want to participate too." Mark ignored the frivolous remarks and only addressed the last point. "You want to participate? That would make you a dark faction player. Is that okay with you? Are you a knight? It could have bad consequences for your class." Bloodwraith frowned. "I told him the same thing," Phoenix sighed. "Damn it, then why the hell are we still in light faction? Can't we defect to dark faction already? This is bullshit. I also want to be on Big Bro's team." Phoenix rubbed her temples and looked at Mark, who gave her a silent nod. Younger siblings were a headache. There was no need for words to point out that truth. "By the way, where is Blood God?" She too had a few things to discuss with him. Mark shook his head. He opened his mouth to answer them when suddenly new system notifications flashed in front of everyone, bright and golden. "Ding! Dawnbreaker has become the new city lord of Valeros City. Ding! Dawnbreaker has earned the title Hammer of Justice. Ding! Dawnbreaker has earned 10,000 reputation points and 5,000 fame. Ding! Guild Northern Frontier has become the first guild to possess a guild residence. Ding! Guild Northern Frontier has earned 10,000 reputation points and 5,000 fame." "Hey, isn't Valeros City one of the neighboring cities of Nira?" Bloodwraith asked. Nobody answered, but the grave expressions on Mark's, Kate's, and Phoenix's faces spoke volumes. Unfortunately, the system notifications did not stop with just that. Barely a minute had passed when a new series of notifications rang out loudly. "Ding! Celestial Hero has become the new city lord of Haga City. Ding! Celestial Hero has earned 8,000 reputation points and 3,000 fame. Ding! Guild European Coalition has become the second guild to possess a guild residence. Ding! Guild European Coalition has earned 8,000 reputation points and 3,000 fame."